Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. And as always, I hope that you enjoy Where Monsters Sleep, written by FieserMoep. Nolena was running like she had never done before, running for her very life from the assailant unseen. What she had witnessed were the mangled corpses of her colleagues, men and women that she had learned to know and like for months during the voyage to the sinkhole. It was a marvelous location, some sort of unexplainable gravity well in an otherwise relatively empty region. Relative, for space, that is. It was a graveyard, so to speak, for its gravitational pull had drawn in all kinds of debris. What made it special was the fact for how isolated it was and for how long it had existed. This meant one thing. If there was a stranded craft in this vicinity, it would sooner or later, on a galactic time scale, end up here. Then there were quite a few vessels here. Most were damaged in some sort, may due to some hostile action of olden days, some unexpected danger which had compelled its crew to abandon a ship a few millennia ago, or just by arriving here and crashing into other craft, turning it into a giant artificial mothball. It was a priceless discovery for any xenoarchaeologist brave enough to cut their way through these structures, a mess of misaligned corridors and compressed metal. This did not help her, though. Her friends were dead, mauled, butchered, and burned by an acid by some unknown creature, or even more than one. At first, she had not noticed that they were getting picked off. There was no constant radio contact, no need for such protocol, given the sites that they were excavating had been deemed safe by previous teams and the authorities. Just like that, she had realized that many people simply stopped responding. She was going for them, taking a look if they had found something, but all she found were their corpses, brutalized beyond recognition. As she ran, she heard their claws, the thumping sound and the echoing steps, always at the same distance, as if they knew that she was the last, as if they were hunting her for sport and amusement, after all the others had perished. By now, it was merely instinct that made her go. She crawled through the tight passages, foregoing any caution. Who cares for a hole in the suit when the alternative would be that? Maybe dying that way was even more merciful. She might have ventured into previously undiscovered areas. Who cares if death was behind you? Oddly enough, she made progress without having to cut any bulkheads. Maybe fate was on her side, after all. If only for those cruel seconds until her pursuer would end its game and catch up. It was then that she had entered an area of unknown design, utilitarian by nature, angular, and composed of exposed metal structures. If it had been any other moment, she would have recognized how the lights were still on, how the power seemed to surge with a humming through the ship, which had to be several millennia old just to be buried so deep in the sinkhole. It might have been a discovery of her lifetime. Well, it was. But all that was not important anymore. She just ran. Maybe it was the subconscious that made her follow the barely visible red line that was painted on the floor. Maybe she saw something in which it reminded her of the dangers she was in. Whatever it was, it led her into a dead end. She stumbled into a room just dimly lit, a collection of crushed tube-like structures on its opposing wall, remnants of a civilization long lost. There was no way out. She cried out in frustration, not fear. She had allowed herself to be consumed by a spark of hope that was crushed just now. She knew that she would never get out of here again. Too far had she been running into the strange location. She'd found a tomb. Her hunters must have heard her, must have noticed how she became slower as she stumbled towards the single tube that was left and emanated a strange glow. As she came closer, she felt an icy cold. The system was leaking. It was failing. Somehow she knew what was in front of her, a cryopod. The technology was well known, and if anything somewhat universal amongst the plethora of these ships, many of which were not FTL capable and tried to offer their crew some sort of survival option. This was an incredible find. Functioning pods were rare, extremely rare given how old the technology had to be, for them to be up here. For a moment, all thoughts of her peril were gone, surprised by her very identity of being a researcher at heart, mourning the fact that it would not be her to discover the unknown. She tried to wash over the translucent front shield of the pod, but there was nothing to be seen. So close, yet so far. Not even in death she could face the unknown. A single thought crossed her mind. What if she was to release whatever has inside the pod? Could it help her? Would it save her? But just as quick as the thought came, she discarded it. How cruel would it be to reawaken a being so old just to be mauled? Would they be affected by cryosickness? Was it even her right to risk its life, to risk this discovery of her peers? Their life and so much knowledge would be lost, just because she was afraid. This could not be. Slowly, she went down on the floor, sitting in dust which possibly had not been disturbed for as long as her people had mastered their FTL drives. Maybe it even predated the first attempts of scripture. As she sat there, she calmed down. She had accepted her fate, and while she knew that she could not fight it off, at least she could face it. Look it in the eyes, if it even had at least some solace. Then they came. Creatures of nightmares, hissing and moving in such an unnaturally graceful manner that it made his spine go cold. They reflected the light that could be seen on their glossy carapaces, and at least 5 of them crawled through the opening, spreading out into a circle around her. Clearly, they possessed some sort of cruel sentience. Then, too many things happened simultaneously. The lighting turned red, unseen speakers howled in an insane siren, and an unnatural voice began to speak in words unknown. Code red, hostile boarding action detected. It was an ever-repeating loop, but before its third cycle, the very same voice began booming behind her in just different, adding its unintelligible chorus to the cacophony. Xeno threat detected, emergency protocols activated, combat reanimation initiated. Stand back, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. But that series of small detonations made her ears ring. Just next to her, the very same shielding which had covered her pod was violently pushed outwards, releasing the thick mist of extreme cold that enveloped her. Vitals novel, combat readiness approved. Engage. The short pause. Nothing happened. The creatures were suddenly holding back, not eyeing her anymore, but the thing which was so suddenly activated just next to her. Then lightning and thunder alike erupted with blinding and deafening intensity. A rapid succession of bright-colored light streams out of the pod, each one followed by a massive booming echo. She was too slow to comprehend, as she just then saw 2 of the creatures already being torn apart by such a force that only the dark gore remained where they had stood. The other 3 scattered, for another one being caught in the projectiles. It was launched against the wall, its body arguing with itself if it should instantly implode or just resist for long enough for the kinetic energy to smash it against the solid alloy wall. Then the thing stepped outside its life pod, metal scratching on metal as its limbs landed next to her. With nothing but awe, she witnessed the birth of a demigod. It was tall and clad in armor so meticulously crafted that nothing but polished black surface could be seen. One of the beings had climbed up the ceiling and now launched an incredibly fast diving attack, so fast that only in the aftermath could she understand what she had seen. It was just a single, fluid motion, as the thing drew an elongated knife, utilized the force of the approaching assailant to impale it, and turn around so that it could utilize its momentum to discard it, like it was nothing. She noticed that it was thrown on its other side, not at her. The last creature was stormed ahead, spitting greenish acid as it made its desperate charge. It was to no avail. a short staccato of a mighty rifle, and there was nothing left remaining of its original shape. The warrior waited, maybe looking out for a hidden enemy that still was to be spotted. Then it looked at her. Never before had she felt such a crushing stare. Never before had she been feeling so small. She had traded 5 monsters for an even worse one. Yet she did not die, for she was not thrown against the wall like a hunter, crushed. She was not evaporated by its armaments. Instead, it just looked at her. "Who are you?" She could not understand and just raised her arms, showing that she was of no threat, that she wanted to live, that she couldn't be ignored and would never speak of it, if it did not want her to do so. But she could not say that. With a mechanical sound, the rifle seemed to snap onto the breastplate of the being. What happened next was surreal. It mimicked her gesture. It raised its empty hands, just not as extreme and expressively as she did. Was it signaling the same intention, or just repeating some visual stimulus? Maybe even mocking her. Then it lowered its left limb, only for its right one to remain raised, swinging from left to right like a pendulum. Hi. End of story. Just a quick shout out to the T5 peeps. Bob the Dragon, Cat Crab Lobster, Data Magnet, Dark Machine, Bezic, Try Again 95, Fudic Yol, Astrea the Dreamer, Caspar Arnholtz, Cam Maxwell, Athelia, Meridian 117, and Jordan Bucksmorm. Thank you very much. And that, my friends, concludes this video. I hope that you enjoyed. There are links down below, both to support this channel and for the author of this fiction. Anyways, I hope you all have a fantastic one, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.